Good morning, here we are at the York Aesthetica Short Film Festival. I'm here with Jason. Say hello, Jason.
Good morning.
So we've come to the first venue. We haven't picked up our passes yet, but there is one of the venues. That's the York Explore, and we have got some posters. More later. So, good evening. I'm Ian. This is Jason.
Hello there.
We're here. So the channel's all about music and art. We're here doing the Aesthetica Film Festival. This is day one, and we're back in my hometown of York. And we're just going to tell you what the festival's like, really. So we had a nice walk into town. We're staying out at Clifton, and the first thing we went to, we got a coffee on the way, didn't we? Had to wander around.
Yeah, you can tell there's lots of people buzzing around.
Yeah,
you can tell
lots
the
of people
festival's
with these on. Well, at first I thought these were actually staff, but obviously everybody's got one of these, and they've got a different, whether it's a day pass or they're staff or they're a delegate. We've got an unlimited pass, so we can literally go to anything, providing that some of the things you have to. You have to book in advance for some of the masterclasses and the workshops. We've done a couple of masterclasses today, weren't they? But you can literally turn up at a block of films, short films, and then go in. And so we've been doing that as well. So the first thing we went to was, we arrived at the city screen, which is where the hub is. So if you come into the festival, you need to go there. If you've pre-booked, they'll give you your pass. It's just literally through the door. The city screen have got 3 screens. It's a normal cinema, and they have got films running pretty much all the time. And actually, the first thing we went to was a sound installation
in the basement.
With a basement bar. Actually, the basement bar is normally a comedy venue or a small venue.
Okay.
It's down near the loos. But actually, what was interesting was there wasn't any. I had to ask somebody where the installation was, because there was nothing on the ground level to tell you where it was. So anyway, you need to go downstairs and then into the bar, and then there's some bean bags where you can sit around.
Sometimes it puts me on the spot. Sometimes it does. But sometimes I just sort of try to brush over, give them a super fast answer. Jamaican. Next question.
I could just say I'm Chinese, but I'm half Italian, but I'm Chinese.
I mean, what did you think of that?
It was quite interesting. I mean, there was 8 different interviewees.
Yeah.
There was 8 different speakers.
Yeah.
So I guess if you sat in the middle on the beanbags,
yeah,
you could feel like you were immersed in it, I guess.
I did sit on the beanbag for a while, but I certainly didn't feel immersed.
Yeah, okay.
But so then I stood up and sat on a bench, because for me the immersion element didn't really work.
Okay. I guess that's what they were trying to do.
That was what we were trying to do.
Maybe
yeah.
if it was full, if there was people in
yeah,
there, it might be a little bit more.
I mean, it's quite a long piece. We didn't stay for all of it. It's 40 minutes. The artist was there, so you could have had a conversation with her about it if you're interested. So if it sounds like your sort of thing, by all means, go and see it.
Yeah. And there's a show as well afterwards, isn't there? There was set up with a piano.
Yeah,
so there's some kind of show going.
She was going to perform not directly connected to the surround sound piece, but she was going to perform a piece of music, because there's a thing on the wall which tells you exactly what's going on. That was at 2:00 today. I don't know whether that's 2:00 every day. If we find out, I'll stick it in the comments down below. We then, because we thought it was only going to be 15 minutes, it wasn't. It was 40 minutes. We stayed there about 10 or 15 minutes, didn't we?
Yep.
Got a feel for the thing. We then decided to go to separate films. Now, this was in Screen 1 and Screen 2. I went to Screen 2, which was drama. You went to screen one, which was comedy.
And then generally the other one is documentaries.
Yeah.
It seems to be that's how it's split.
Now, in theory, you can go at any point, and we knew we'd missed the beginning of it because I think it started at 10 o'clock, and by this time it was gone 11. I got to see the last film, which was just tell you what it was called. So the block of films. This was, and it's interesting. It's worth mentioning that although I've seen a bit of Drama 1 today, each of the blocks of short films are on 3 times throughout the whole festival. So if you come into the festival and you fancy Drama 1, you can go and see it. It'll tell you exactly when it was. So this was Drama 1. It was called, the block of 5 films were called Standing on the Edge of a Cliff. Now, I didn't see the first 4 films, so I may go back at some point because they did sound interesting. And I did miss the film I saw was Tone Dex 2000, and it was 28 minutes in total. I missed the first 4 minutes. Having said that, I pretty much got what was going on. And it was pretty much a two-handed film. This guy had tried to steal a car. I won't tell you too much about it. That's the bit I didn't see, and then it's about his relationship with the woman whose car he was trying to steal and what happened after that. So I'll just tell you a little bit of synopsis of what it says. It says, so it was in French with subtitles. It says, we meet Sylvian, an Afghan veteran living on petty crime. And his life is changed when he crosses paths with Natalie, an upper-class CEO struggling to keep her lawnmower company afloat. That's all it tells us. So that sounds, and I enjoyed it actually. I thought it was really good. So you had the short straw here because you went to comedy.
I went to comedy, but because we were late, I effectively caught the last 2 scenes of the last comedy film. The one I saw was called Golden Child. The screening was full. I actually stood in the aisleway. There were a couple of seats spotted around, but right. I didn't want to. I was there at the end. I didn't want to walk in front of people, so I stood in the walkway. Could see the film. I saw literally 3 or 4 minutes of the film, but actually it must have been a really good film because in those it was 2 or 3 scenes. I got to know the cast, got to know the relationship, got an inkling of what was going on, and then the punchline at the end was very good. And I got the punchline without having to see the rest of the film. So that tells me it was a good sign.
I'm going to look at what the actual.
It was in Comedy 1.
Yeah, it's Comedy 1. So
Comedy 1
is in her power, and it was Golden Child. So there was another 5 films that
I'm sure were all amazing.
Yeah. So and so it proves the point that you can just fall into them, but actually the thing to do is to turn up at the beginning. And we've noticed today that everything has started pretty much on time.
Yeah, it's been pretty efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is really, really good. So if it sounds like your sort of thing, so we then went to our first masterclass, which was
Simon Franklin.
Yes,
it was how to score
a movie. Now you had a ticket for this. I didn't have a ticket, and naughtily there was some seats left, luckily, but I blagged my way in to some extent.
You've got an unlimited pass.
Well, I've got an unlimited. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
So it was a pretty deep dive, right? He was using Pro Tools. Yeah, he brought up his. I'm guessing it was a copy, but it was his Pro Tools version of Avatar 2.
Avatar, which he scored Avatar. He scored because he gave us a bit of his history, but he did score Titanic because he worked with James Cameron. Kept calling him Jim.
His mate.
Jim. Yeah, and then he did Avatar 1. He's done Avatar 2, and next year he'll be starting Avatar 3. Yep. And then from then on, there's going to be loads of them, I think.
So it was quite, it was a bit of an in-depth. It was almost a tutorial. It was pretty good. He was showing how he used it. Yeah. He showed, it was like almost 1,000 different tracks.
Yeah.
He was talking about how he moves through tempo. He was talking about how he wants to he said he wants to manipulate the job of the score maker is recognises where he is on the kind of he said he was the hierarchy, of the totem pole, and the food chain, right?
And that's very much the case. But I think the problem is that composers. I mean, he did say that getting a score is cheap, much cheaper than special effects and all that. But it is so far down the food chain, and really, I mean, think, and you probably feel the same, it really shouldn't be. And we do know that certain directors will bring the composer in right at the beginning, but that's not the norm. You know, I actually meant to ask him, because we did the questions at the end, I didn't meant to ask him I would have liked to know where he comes in to the actual process. Is he there right at the beginning? I suspect, because he's big mates with Jim, that he does come in right at the beginning.
Yeah, he said in some cases he wrote little compositions based around a script read.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, that was true. Yeah,
early,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that's good actually, you know, because not every director will do that, you know. So there is a food chain, and you know, us composers are down at the bottom. Not that we've scored many films.
So it was a good start to the day.
It was a very good start to the day.
Certainly piqued our interest. It was something that was close to our heart.
Yeah.
Some tips, you know, from him. He kind of said, you know, never say no to any job. He talked about he cut his teeth on kind of jingles and doing jingles. He was saying even kids' TV and things like that, which is quite interesting. He talked about the emergence of AI and a little bit worried that kind of part of the market could disappear.
Yeah.
You know, doing jingles, doing, you know, those 20-second, 30-second sound bites. He's worried that, you know, the next generation of him may not get the chance to do that because it's easy to go and get AI to do it for you. So that
he did work as a record producer as well, didn't he? So that, you know, probably both of those things helped him get into films, because it's hard to get. I mean, especially it's hard to get a job as a score of film, any film to some extent. So it's a very difficult business to get into, and I suppose once you're in that business and you get a reputation and you get your name known, then a lot of directors and producers will go back to the same sort of people. But he did mention it. He didn't mention him by name, but he mentioned a composer who was removed from a film. And that does happen from time to time. So it's not always going to be, you know, a particular composer's work isn't always necessarily right for a particular film. And the director and the producer might not know that at the beginning, you know, especially if they've not worked with that person before. You know, it can be quite cutthroat, I think. You know. Well,
deadlines as well.
Yeah.
You know, he was saying, you know, you get a text message at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night,
which he did.
You've got to overhaul a section by 5 a.m. the next morning,
and then send it off to America, I suppose. Or wherever.
And then it might end up on the floor anyway.
Yeah, so I have heard those sort of stories before. You know, from people that I know.
So pretty interesting. There was lots of interaction, lots of questions as well, and he was really.
We were probably the oldest people in the audience. Well, I was probably. I was probably the oldest person in the audience.
We were bringing up the average age.
But yeah, there was lots. I mean, I think, and I don't know whether today is the day that students are given passes, but there seem to be lots of
rotating through.
Certainly. When I walked to the last block of short films, there was literally it looked like a school group.
Right.
They were all. I mean, they were younger than the people that were in that session.
Okay.
But so I think maybe some of the schools around York have been given access today, which is quite nice, and I quite like that. If they're interested in getting into film and these sort of industries and gaming and things like that, then the fact that they're given access to this is brilliant.
Yeah, it's good.
You know,
it was good.
Yeah. What did we do after that?
Well, talking of young people, the next session was gaming. We went to a
masterclass
about gaming for good.
Yeah, I made some notes on it. I hadn't been making notes up until that point, but I did make notes on this because I do play games. I play one game at a time, but I've played games off and on. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself to be a gamer, you know, but I have played games over. And I mean, for me, and it was. I mean, it clearly wasn't aimed at us because neither of us are real gamers in that sense. But I think he gave us an insight what it's like to be to the difficulties of what it was a panel, and I'll include a photograph that I took of the panel.
It was a panel of 5.
Yeah.
There's a guy from BAFTA he's kind of the advocate for gaming on behalf of BAFTA. He goes every year. I think he said it was his second year. The thing I found interesting was the demographic in the people in there. Not only was everybody young, but I mean there was 3 females on a panel of 5.
Yeah, that was good.
The room was probably, I wouldn't say 50-50, but it was probably 40% female in the room, all very young.
Yeah.
And I thought, that was.
And some of those people, because one of them, sorry to interrupt, but one of the panel asked who was making games, and quite a few people put their hands up, which was nice, was quite nice.
Yeah. So I think it's shifting. The traditional gamer of our era would be spotty teenagers
Definitely.
in their bedroom alone.
That's just been very generic, isn't it? Yeah.
So it's definitely changing, and I think it's probably one of the. They talked about the kind of COVID era and lockdown and what that I think was probably a bit of a catalyst for how the gaming industry changed. I think in terms of connecting people.
Yeah, I started playing more games through, and like I say, I only play one game at a time, but I certainly played more through lockdown, along with doing things like making music and meeting friends online, which was I think was a big thing for me then, when I started to actually meet friends, have Zoom meetings with friends, and like we had the book club. Jane, I mean, I never really went to the book club that often, but Jane went to a book club, and through COVID we went online to the book club. Right. The problem there is that it's okay having meeting people online, but it's really irritating when people start to talk over each other and they don't have those things where they know when that person's talking you need to wait until somebody else. So some people haven't picked, certainly through COVID, hadn't picked up on that etiquette yet.
Yeah, body language.
That's all missing. So, but certainly gaming for me, I played a lot more through that time. Okay. But I tend to play sort of things like The Last of Us, which is sort of pandemic, and actually I have to say playing that game through a pandemic was probably the worst thing to do, because it felt almost too real, certainly at the beginning of the pandemic. But yeah, no, I made I made a couple of notes. There was, because we're not in the gaming fraternity, I didn't understand some of the acronyms that we use. Like, I don't know what a DEI is. No. And I wrote down what is a DEI. We may find out at some point.
Look it up.
It was interesting because one of the guys said about games that were helping mental health, and I hadn't thought that games can really help mental health.
Shame on us for DEI.
Go on then.
Diversity, equity and inclusion.
Oh, there we are.
Which was a theme of kind of what they were talking about. Actually,
it was, yeah. So, that's good, yeah. The fact that I hadn't really thought that games, certainly through the pandemic, could help people. If you're living on your own, playing a game actually will help your mental health to some extent. I know that it's not a real world. I mean, especially playing, because I never played games with other people online. Sorry, we've got some music going on in the background.
It's a phone ringing with a jaunty.
He sounds like
sea shanty.
It's Captain Pugwash. Yeah. Anyway, we digress. So I never played games online with other people, but I'm sure that helped people if you're in their isolation, to help cut down on their isolation. And they were talking about the fact that through the pandemic, games generally were, it was a real boost for the industry, and that obviously fell away to some extent when people got back to work, because they didn't have as much free time. It was interesting. I didn't realise that they had the terminology of things like the pitch. I know about the pitch because that you pitch a game, but you pitch it to a person called a game scout, which I'd never heard of before, which in effect
is like an A&R.
Which is like an A&R, or if it was books, it would be an agent. But the chap from BAFTA said that out of 2,000 pitches, only 2 might get picked up, which that's really quite tough for those people who want, developers who want to make games. But I thought, for me, it gave me, although it wasn't aimed at us, it gave me really good insight into what the gaming industry like and what the problems that they've got in the gaming industry, really. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they were talking a lot about they were hoping that they were at the top of that curve where it's been monetized.
Yeah.
It's the AAA. They talked about the AAA studios.
Yeah.
They talked about it start to become focus on profit and numbers rather than the content.
Yeah.
But they thought there were a bit of a tipping point now and coming down, and some of the power would come back to the independent artists.
It would be
and
nicer
developers.
to see more independent. And I'm sure, I don't know how many games come out each week, but that's about budgets as well, isn't it? I mean, you don't hear about them because smaller independent games producers might not have the budget to really promote it, like promoting a record or a track, or it's the same sort of thing as that.
They talked in depth about making of the Pirate Queen.
Yeah, and that sounds really interesting. And the CEO of that was one of the girls on the panel, because it started bang on time, and we weren't really late, but we were they'd already introduced their names by the time we walked in the room, so I didn't pick up on her name. But I'm interested in playing that game, although it might only be a VR game.
VR, yeah.
Yeah, well, I haven't played any VR games, and that would be pointless for me. But no, I am interested because it's about the Opium Wars, and I know a little bit about that having been to Hong Kong. So because I picked some of that up in the museums in Hong Kong about the Opium Wars. But it's something, as she's rightly said, it's not talked about in history in schools, and probably it should be because we are involved,
right,
as we usually are.
Right.
You know. So
it was nominated for a BAFTA. I think
yeah.
It seems to be like an up and coming game. It looks like it's going to be a bit of a breakthrough game. They were certainly very positive about it.
So certainly I want to look at it.
Lucy Liu's cast in it. Yeah. I guess it's voiceover or just.
And what was really interesting was she was saying that they'd worked with academics and researchers to get all of the elements of the games. She said that because it's a pirate ship and this woman obviously existed, and they'd put nails in the actual planks of the ship. And she said that when they talked to the researchers and that, they had to take all the nails out because they were, at that point in time in history, they wouldn't have used nails in China. They would have used tongued and grooved joints. So they had to replace that. You know, so that level of detail sounds great actually
to capture the authenticity. I think that's what
lovely.
they're keen to do.
And they're trying to get it shown in schools as well. To you know, so
yes, we'll check out the trailer.
Yeah, and I'll put a link down below to the trailer of the film, so you check it out. I think we'll turn this into 2 films because we've got quite a bit, and we've been talking for a good 10 minutes plus. So we'll break now. So this is part 1. And we'll come back with part 2 of day 1, which is we both went to see. I saw 6 films, and you saw 6 films.
6 films, yeah, documentaries.
You know, and so there's more to come of this sort of thing. Not everything I saw was great. So there's a teaser. But anyway, we'll be back in the next film. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye bye.